Hey everybody, it's us, Team Economic Advisors. You might recognize us from the time we made a game. Its name was too long. It's about ostriches though.
Ostriches are important.
Yeah, so with me today is Tom
Hello.
and Joseph.
Hello?
And today we're going to tell you about what exactly happened over the last 2 weeks or so.
Yeah, I would like to say the name of the game, but I actually don't remember it now.
It's depression, decreased ability to feel pleasure, suicidal thoughts, ostriches.
Yeah, you can tell Joseph is the one who's proud of the game.
I'm very proud of the game. I'm proud of that name. While we were just looking up like information about cocaine, and I was just kind of like, this seems like a good title.
Well, it worked.
So the first
Anyway.
thing on our agenda, that we have an agenda, by the way, for anyone who's watching, who's seen our old videos. We know what we're talking about. We have things sections. I probably might put timestamps on YouTube.
You typed everything up, and now we can read words before we say them.
Well, if you guys aren't going to give an introduction, this was for the Little Awful Jam 2017. The team consisted of EntranceJew, myself, which is Seppi, Joseph and Pat, whatever. We have Tom. I don't know how to say your last name. I've only ever guessed.
It's R.
Tom R.
Tom
R. People like to say my last name like that too, Joseph P. Anyway, and then we also have Naomi K, who's not on audio right now, but she did the music. Tom R did the graphics, and myself, Entrance, did a lot of all the coding, and I did a lot of the voiceovers. Yeah, no, I think we were actually a really solid team, if you ask me. I mean, that one of the points that I know that we're coming up to, and we'll talk later, is like I came in halfway through the game development cycle.
Yeah. So, like, the idea for the game, and I don't remember, I really do not remember who had the idea. Was it
Well,
Tom?
sit down and take a back seat, because I remember this. This is a good story.
Yeah.
So, the Little Awful Jam 2017 theme was panic, and so we were trying to come up with ideas that had to do with panic. And so it was just me and EntranceJew kind of shooting the shit, and we had a lot of really bad ideas, and for some reason we went with the worst one.
Yeah, like I'm a little railroaded, I'm going to admit.
We do have other people that sometimes help out, and they could recognize that this was a bad idea, so they bowed out gracefully. And then we thought it was funny, and we had the idea that if you took Hungry Hungry Hippos, that the gameplay there is panicked gameplay. So it seemed at the time like a good idea to make a Hungry Hungry Hippos style game, because the mechanics would be panicked, and informing the mechanics from the theme of the jam would probably be a good idea. But then as we started making the game, we realized that Hungry Hungry Hippos doesn't have any agency for the player. You just hit one button as fast as you can.
Yeah, and I think that's why we got the second part in the sort of the racing segment. Yeah, but mostly I think the primary objective was I want ostriches that do cocaine. I think that was like the real demand that Entrance had.
Well, it's a funny idea.
It was the only thing I said, is that I would state whatever's happening, I want there for to be cocaine being eaten by ostriches, and I'm very happy with the way that the first part of the game came out in that regard. They were certainly there.
No, that's part of the story though. Is like I was gone for the first week of this whole debate debacle, whatever, and like I remember I was in a different country at the time, so all I had access to was not even the game design document, but like just the idea pad. And I remember the first week you guys were developing, I was like, what the fuck is going on? I have no idea what's happening. It's just like, okay. I had no idea what was going on until you guys finally gave me the game design document that I didn't know existed.
Yeah, he was reading the brainstorming document.
Oh yeah, the one with like 7 other ideas on it.
Yeah.
I really had no fucking idea what was going on.
Right, and I'd never worked with Joseph before, so I mean that worked out, but it was just a little bit of a to come in, halfway through a jam, and we're already got a game on the go. You have no idea what's going on. You never worked with the dude. That was a lot to pick up.
Well, I think it worked out all right. I mean, I don't want to speak for myself here, but I really enjoyed working with both of you.
Oh yeah, it worked.
I think everything went together all right. I mean, there were some times where I would feel like I kind of had to make sure everybody was in their zone, but other than that, that was just like, just making sure things gelled.
Yeah. No, at the beginning, I mean, I know that like I was a little bit stressful on the team, I'm going to admit, because what I learned from my previous jams is I really do need to push back on specific subjects like, the game design or, like how the visuals are going to work and whether or not specific mechanics work and stuff like that. And I know that was a little stressful, but I'm really happy with the product we made regardless.
So our timeline for this, it says here that we prepped. I don't remember doing that.
I put a big question mark on that because I don't think we prepped at all. But in the way we did prep, because like there was the Twitch integration, which came from your previous games, and like that was usually when it comes to game jams, when I talk about preparation, I'm talking about people understanding the software, people having the software installed, people knowing their artistic tools and stuff. So like from a preparation standpoint, I say we actually did pretty well because even Tom knows Unity from what I understand, so that even helped a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've already made games. We had our repo set up, and we made a game design document. I mean, not a fantastic one or anything, but it was there. So yeah, we did prep work. If you go back and look at, I mean, if you could go back and look at some of the other games that we made before, holy hell.
I have no idea what the design process was for those.
there wasn't one.
Oh, Jesus.
We took everything in the kitchen and put it in a bucket and shook it around.
Well, for Burger Game, we had a document typed out-ish, but it went the same way anything else did, is that we get a bunch of ideas on paper, we pick a good one, we kind of get the core on paper again, and then we just go.
Yeah. No, like I remember seeing the llama game, and like it was kind of like it was Breakout meets some sort of adventure llama game, but there was Twitch integration, which I remember seeing in one of the videos, and I was like, okay, that's pretty damn cool. That was pretty fun. But yeah, no, timeline point B says the game didn't work for a week. I mean, in my opinion, that's perfectly fine. But if you guys want to comment on that.
Well, I mean, this time around we wanted to focus more on gameplay, but a lot of the gameplay kind of was restricted to the implementation, I think. Like I'd started working on the Hippo game, and the Hippo game, we actually ended up scrapping every part of it. And I got a majority of the work done on the racing game. And the racing game, there were lots of questions in the air, so I was programming things to be a little bit flexible. It's like, do we need 6 lanes? Do we need 4? How are we going to space things out? How are we going to keep things moving? So it was like the game was there, but we didn't really even get to test the feel of it until way late into it.
Yeah, about a week and a half in, I'd say. I mean, I remember coming on the project and we had like 3 scenes and only one was connected, and it was like, the Hippo game wasn't a scene we weren't even using, and the race game was there, but it wasn't playable. I remember like we sat down, what'd we say? We said we wanted to get a working version of the game by Wednesday. the second Wednesday. And I think we actually got something working for the most part. It was definitely working.
Yeah, the two were together. It didn't get welded 100% until like the last few days, but it was there.
The timeline slipped before that, though, because we were intending to have the game in a playable state by the first week's end, and then polish it for the second week.
That's right. That's right.
But then, things went well enough, but there was some holdups on stuff.
I mean, from my perspective, this was a 1 week game jam because I came halfway through it and had 1 week left. The game worked halfway through the game jam, and we polished into the wee mornings for the last days. And like from my perspective, it was actually really solid. But of course, you guys had an extra week, so you'd have to comment on that, I suppose.
Well, we have. I don't want to say we always have slow starts, but we kind of have starts where we have to get a feel for like building out the scaffold. So we start building stuff and we start putting everything together, and we're like, is this where it should be? I don't know. Just gonna leave it here. All right, that's cool by me. Let's go. And we're leaving all these scaffolds, and Tom's got his test art folder that ends up making it to production. And I've got scenes that are abandoned and long forgotten, and I say, don't open that.
Well, normally, I mean, if you have time, you make the game work with cubes and spheres and whatever, and then I go in and put the actual thing in the position.
I'm not gonna lie, I really like that because normally when I'm making Unity games, I find myself using the squares or spheres and telling the art Blender artist or the Maya artist, the 3D artist basically, get me these assets. And when I do get them, they're always the craziest scale on earth, or they're upside down, and it's just like, okay, now I have to go through and actually put this into the game. Like being able to have a workflow where the artist puts the assets in the game is so helpful. I swear to God.
Yeah,
Well,
and I tried to do that with the Hungry game, but it ended up not mattering because we ended up using a model rig, which was configured differently than the game was coded, so we just scrapped it. But we were using cubes. That was actually the first time I think we did anything like that. Usually Tom has something ready to go before I even start working with it.
Well, I mean, just like when you were making the breakout thing on the llama game, you'd put a square, and then I'd come in and paint a proper square.
Oh yeah.
But that's a good system, and I think what tripped us up a little bit this time is, like you say, you were making the hippo game, and you had no idea what scale to make anything. And by the time I got the ostrich model done and rigged and into position, it really wasn't compatible.
Yeah, that happens a lot. I mean, I remember I was making the main menu screen, and I was pulling random assets out of the test folder going, this will fit here. But of course, like some assets were scaled to 100 and some assets were scaled to 1/100th, and I was just like, wee.
So, well, what's next on here? The final push?
Yeah, the final push. I remember the last night of the jam, Entrance and I were up until like 5 a.m. We had Tom R up until like 2 a.m. And we were just sort of like, we were dead, but we were like, okay, we have to make a audio crossfade system, and we also need to fix this bug, and we need to fix this bug. And I'm not, I was tired, but I was so glad that Entrance was there and pushing everybody to work, because I would have just said, you know what, it's a game jam, I'm going to leave it here. But Entrance was so focused on getting all of the bugs and little things out of the way. I was more than happy to stay up. I felt that was really motivational.
And it's mostly driven by the fact that we get so many game jam. I don't want to say a lot of game jam games basically get turned on their belly because of a single minute thing, but it all adds up. And with our sort of history with making games is I don't want those grievances to really start tallying up before the game has its opportunity to do what it's going to do.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. I remember during the Twitch recordings when they were showing off our game, I had my roommate and my girlfriend sitting there watching it live, and they were laughing their ass off at like all the components. It's just like, this game's ridiculous. I really got, even if we didn't make it into the final 12 or whatever, I think like even like the feedback from people that weren't working on the project thought it was pretty weird and funny, considering that was what we were going for. I think that was actually really, really positive on what we did.
Well, I think everything ancillary to the like the core gameplay was very polished. All the menus and the just like the mechanics of the game as a program. Like, it started, there's a splash screen, there's a menu, there's options, you can quit, there's like you can play the game again without having to exit it. It gives you a score screen at the end. The only thing we weren't able to really do is polish up the gameplay. Not that it didn't work. It's just it could have used a bit more juice, a bit more clarity. I think some people had a hard time telling what was happening and what were good things to run into and what were bad things to run into.
Well, I think we did a pretty good job with like, I remember like the first time I played the race game on its own, like I was able to tell what was something good and what was something bad, and I was like, we can definitely accentuate this with sound effects and stuff. But of course, being able to tell whose ostriches was who was like one of the basic problems we had from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things, I had this idea for the art style, and EntranceJew had an idea for the art style, and I just wasn't feeling, like my creative juices just weren't flowing, and I didn't really get the look of the game exactly how I wanted, which was a little bit frustrating, and it was hard to really make things pop. I mean, everything was there, and it all came together, and it didn't look bad, but it didn't look really, really good the way I wanted it to.
What would you have done differently?
Oh, I don't know. If I knew how to fix it, I would have.
That's fair.
I mean, we're thinking about pushing this whole thing to Steam. I mean, I think that's actually a reasonable thing that we should start thinking about is like, I mean, should we be using more toon shaders? Should we be doing cell styling? I mean...
Yeah. There's a lot of different things we have to look at to see what would clear up the issues that we have.
I mean, in terms of art, I kind of wanted to go more serious. I don't know how serious cartoon cocaine ostriches can be. However, I mean, I did want some of that to contrast against with humor and our usual goofy style that we do. Something a little bit more straight faced. And I think we got some of that, which is important, especially because you can't have a whole game be obnoxiously cartoony or goofy, or else it just stops making sense.
Yeah, everything worked together, and I don't want to say I totally missed the mark or anything, but it came out good, And when something's good and you want great, well,
Yeah. One thing I think we really tripped up on was the post of the production. We should have been posting a lot more stuff on Twitter. We should have made like a Reddit post. We should have made, I don't know. I mean, we should have had a better landing page on the website to push people towards, just so we can get. I mean, what do my statistics say? It looks like we have about 35 downloads total. and it's kind of like, okay, for, like a small jam like that, that's actually pretty good. But I felt like we could have definitely reached out to a wider audience. I mean, maybe we still can't, but like, I think that's something we really should consider doing for the next game, is focusing a lot more on social outreach.
Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people try and springboard directly off of a jam anywhere else, but when it comes to motivation and just kind of understanding how people receive your game, having a vehicle ready to receive the game, having a place for them to go, having like, this is your exposure. You get it on stream, you get it released, you post it on a forum, you say, hey, here's my game. And you kind of just gotta let it all roll in, because you can't just keep spamming, your jam game after it's like done and over with.
That's true. It's true. Like, you got to give a small window of time.
Well, we want to move on to talking about gameplay then.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I love how Tom introduces the gameplay concept, where he talks about using classic games and sort of modernizing them. I'd love if you could just repeat that whole monologue here.
Yeah, sure. I'll just remember what I said. No, I got it. It's there. One of the things I like to do is look at old arcade games, and not like like Street Fighter, but like Asteroids, because those are games that are like, the mechanics are inherently fun, because there's not a lot to the graphics, there's not a lot of juice in those old arcade games, but people still played them and enjoyed them, so it kind of really boils gaming down into its essence of mechanics. So you go back and you look at all these different games, and you try and pick out pieces that you can say, this is something that you could take and modernize and juice up and really use to make a new game. Or you could take concepts from various other games and stick them together and kind of remix them. And I guess we kind of reached into, I don't know what you call Hungry Hungry Hippos a board game or what, but...
Oh, Hungry Hungry Hippos is definitely a board game. I've never really seen it applied in any famous fashion, so to speak. Video games, that is.
Well, I just mean, like, checkers is a board game.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had the Hungry Hungry Hippos, and that was kind of like leading up to the next section of the game. It was like a pre-round to acquire energy, power, something like that. And then we were talking about other games that we liked, and we had mentioned Excite Bike, and what we ended up making was nothing like Excite Bike, but it has lanes, and at one point we actually had the camera the other way around, so it was a side view instead of a rear view camera.
It made it kind of hard to see.
Yeah, well, you can't have like a wave coming along and look at it sideways, because you can't really tell the depth too well.
No, you don't get a full sense of what's coming. I mean, we still kind of bend away the horizon, but that's only because, seeing infinitely into a perspective is kind of dull.
Yeah, and it avoids pop-in. That was one of the major reasons I did it. I bent the world enough that you couldn't see the things popping in.
I like that. That was actually a really good little trick there.
Yeah, that was my contribution to the code. Normally I get my fingers dirty and touch the code more, but this time I thought, I got two full-time programmers. Why would I touch the code?
I'm not going to forget that I accidentally put in the moon upside down for the main menu and then right side up for the game.
Yeah.
It wasn't until really, really late in development where we were like, wait a second, this moon's upside down. I'm like, whoops.
Ah, well.
But yeah, no. What's this whole no? Someone says not excite bike. Like, what
Well,
was the classic
The game,
inspiration for the ostrich race segment?
I mean, that was it. It was that you were supposed to go fast and boost and spend a resource, so to speak. And Tom would liken that to Excite Bike, how you have to swerve to avoid obstacles. You have to spend your boost and not overheat, and you win the race. Except when we changed the camera perspective and kind of slaughtered everything into place, it ended up looking more like a mobile runner game, and it's like, oh.
yeah, and the other thing is, EntranceJew claims to have played Excite Bike, but he didn't know how anything worked, so I don't think he did.
That's the one with the orange guy and the squares, right? You avoid
Yeah,
snakes.
yeah, you use a light gun.
So, art. We already talked about art, didn't we?
Yeah, but I added a note. I guess I'll reiterate it. At points, entrance Jew was at work or entrance Jew was sleeping or whatever the hell he was doing. And it was really great working with Tom because like you'd say stuff like, "Oh, I need the ostrich head," and like be like, "You very patiently told me how the hell to make an ostrich head in Blender," or like you'd answer questions about the meshes and stuff, or like I'd say, "Oh, I really want a boombox here," or Entrance would say, "I really want." A golden bird in a chair here and a crown. It was just like Tom was very excited to build these kind of assets, and obviously in a style that I felt was cohesive. So I thought that was really great.
Yeah, normally I can make things even a little bit faster, but I really did have a almost like a creative block this time. Like we were trying to think of power-ups and obstacles to put in the road, and I it was like, what do you even put in a road? Like so there's cars, garbage cans, other ostriches, a rock. Like what do you put in the road?
Yeah, I think
And
traffic cones was a late addition.
yeah, oh man, I just like I feel kind of bad because like when we made Burger Game, it's like, well, what can we put in a burger? And I just like, oh, how about this and this and this, a piece of cardboard, a CD, whatever. Woo, we'll just put whatever you want. It doesn't even matter. Just making whatever I could think of, and Entrance Jew would say, oh, what about this? What about that? I'm like, yeah, that'll all go in. And this time I was like, okay. And Entrance Jew would be like, make some cool neon signs like Las Vegas. And I'm like, well, here's an arrow. I couldn't even think of words to put on the signs that are on the buildings. I went on the IRC and I was like, give me some words. And they're like, what are the words for? And I'm like, just give me some words, any words. So somebody helpfully typed out a bunch of words and I was like, good enough. So that's what's in the game.
What?
Yeah, you didn't know that?
I mean, the only signs that I noticed were "Eat It, Joe's" and "Girls, Girls, Girls."
Oh, there's just a bunch of nonsense words.
I'm gonna open
Go
the
look!
files. I'm gonna
Go
open
look!
the files now.
I mean, it's hard to read because, like, there's a lot of bloom and the camera, the lights are all flashing and everything's zipping by pretty fast. So you don't have time to read it. But yeah, it's just garbage and nonsense. One
Yeah,
of the
no, I
other
remember seeing a
things.
couple of these going, wait, okay, these are things I'd expect on buildings, I guess.
Yeah, like one of the other things about doing 3D versus 2D is a lot of times with 2D you can have like a big empty space and not necessarily have to fill it in because it could just be like the sky or whatever. Like a lot of games will even just have black and nobody really complains about it. But if there's 3D, there has to be something everywhere, and the quality of asset has to be kind of consistent. So you can't make like a really good asset and surround it with crappy ones, because then the good one looks out of place. So you have to be consistent, and you have to cover everywhere with something.
Why did you just put the word knackered on a building?
Yeah?
And
What do you, that's,
unilaterally?
what do you want? That's a clothing store.
What country? Knackered. That's it.
You're coming back to me now on this?
I can't read, man.
Well, clearly you didn't. And you didn't notice up until now. I had to tell you. Obviously, it's fine. Nobody noticed.
Did you know gaming featuring the developers?
Oh, Jesus. So, okay, next on our thing is art style. As something about Hotline Miami.
Yeah, I had it in my head as part of the seriousness. Is that I don't know, Hotline Miami is it's not like meant to be a huge basis, and I don't know if anyone can even find the influence here aside from drugs and animals.
Drugs, animals, the colors, the bloom. I can feel a lot of Hotline Miami in this game.
Well, I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I suggested it just as a good mental image for somebody that's thinking, all right, I want some faux 80s here.
Yeah. It's a shame we don't have Naomi in here to talk about the music. I'd really love to hear her talk about her process and how she came up with everything. I know. I think she's doing some of it on stream, but I have no idea.
Right. Well, I mean, I'd never played Hotline Miami, and I only looked at a few screenshots. And when EntranceJew said 80s, I mean, like, I'm from the 80s, so I was like, it more or less looked like now. I mean, you know, it's not like aliens have landed and ruined everything.
Well, I was specifically citing the sort of retro like thing
Like
that
fake
everyone,
80s?
yeah.
People misremember the 80s being like?
Oh yeah, remember when the 80s just had giant like mushrooms and neon signs and palm trees would light up, you know?
Is this like
Yeah.
Luxembourg but different?
Well, you know, I'm from Canada, and we don't have palm trees. And I mean, we're probably like not on the cutting edge of fashion up here either. So like my 80s probably looked like everybody else's 70s.
Well, for me, I was born in the late 80s, but I was also born in Austria. So, like, growing up, the only real exposure to the 80s I ever had was VHS recordings being mailed to me with Seinfeld and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers, and seeing, the German television shows. As much as I'd like to say I'm an 80s kid, I didn't experience much of it.
Yeah, even to me that sounds a little more early 90s than anything.
For sure, that's when the Walkman was hot, cool stuff, so to speak. That was the 90s. It was just like, I don't know, like.
Well, either way, the video game looks the way it does.
That's true.
Yeah, you can't lie about that.
It also sounds the way it does. And speaking of sounds, we took the very well orchestrated and awesome music Naomi gave us, and then I made terrible mouth noises until everyone replaced them.
Some of those were really hard to find.
Well, you guys were busy. There was a point where like enough of the art was done that there was more pressure to code the game than to make additional assets, because we kind of had, we were at the point where there was at least one of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys were like, go find some sounds. So I went around and found some sounds, and I was like, these are sounds, but I'm not a sound guy. And then it was like, well, since you got the sounds, put them in the game. And EntranceJew had put his placeholder sounds where he would just say like boing or snap.
I'm an ostrich switching lanes.
Yeah. So
That shit drove me nuts. I remember like testing this, looking for these audio packs, going, "Where the fuck is this shit coming from?"
and then if you go and you read our commit messages, right before he hands the project over to me to put the sounds in, he commits made everything worse for Tom. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Whatever. I didn't even read what he changed. So I'm going and I'm in the assets folder and I'm listening to the sounds and it's like boing. So I go find a boing and I put it in. And I don't even test it. I listen to the asset, stick it in, and then it's like snap. So I go find a snap and I find all these things, I put it in, and I'm like, okay, now I got enough, I'm gonna test this scene. And what he had done is he set it so that Unity will randomly change the volume and pitch every time it plays a sound. So there's all these boinging sounds and snapping sounds and
But they weren't like just boing. They were like boing, boing, boing.
well, yeah, it was like I was falling through a time warp from like a B movie. And you know, you're all tired and been working hard for days, and I don't know. It's like I was having some kind of a trip. I can't handle this shit right now.
Oh, shit. Yeah, like it wasn't just that. It was like, I mean, we had the sound effects that had variable noises, but it was also EntranceJew's voice that had variable noises. So you had to be like, ostrich switching lane, ostrich switching lanes, ostrich.
Oh yeah, it was like going insane. It was somebody stuck you in a crazy house.
I can't believe I woke up in the morning and nobody had mentioned it. And I say, anybody notice that thing that went terribly wrong? And then they're like, you did that?
Well, at a certain point, you're just like, whatever. I did my part. You guys can fix this now. Whatever. Go ahead.
It was to my effect that I think that the bendy, springy noises should have been variable because it was hilarious.
It was hilarious. Can't fault you there. It was hilarious.
Give me 20 seconds. I'll be right back.
That's not how this works.
So-
Well, normally we have a sound guy, but we didn't. They weren't available for this jam, so that was like the one hole in our team.
Mm-hmm. It's actually, I think, where we ended up with You Will Die Here. We didn't have nearly as much noises that we needed for You Will Die Here, though.
I'm back. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about your voice or something?
Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
I did the whole cutscene thing. I'm actually really comfortable with. Obviously, I did the voices for this game, but I had a bunch of other games that I've done voices for. I did a Final Boss, Outlaws of Cygnus. Did a Get Off Cat has a lot of sounds. I did a lot of voice stuff for Dino Bros. I have a whole bunch of games that have really strange voiceovers. So I was really comfortable when it came to doing that.
Yeah, and I just have no shame, so I was gonna do some voice too, but I didn't want to set my mic up, and have it be a noticeable difference in whatever quality Joseph recorded in. So
Yeah.
instead of dealing and mastering with that, I mean, I had already said by now that we went up to the wire with some of our improvements, so I wouldn't have had time to dick around with that.
Yeah.
It
No, but
worked out fine. It was
Yeah,
fine.
it was pretty. I felt like it was actually pretty successful. I remember. I mean, like I think we could have. I think we should have put more time into the script. I think we could have gotten things to be a little more funny. But at the end of it, like people appreciated it. It helped convey the sense of the game. And I don't know. I heard a few people laugh, so I don't feel too bad.
Oh no, the final cutscene that's in the game, it really adds to the game. I think that's where a lot of the charm come from.
Yeah.
Alright, so we don't have any bullet points for this elsewhere, so I'm gonna mention it here. Is that I had this storyboard in mind for the cutscene, and I hadn't like ever had the time to solidify it. So so Joseph had his pitch for what the cutscene would be like, and it largely stayed the same. Um, but I had to like the only instructions I gave for them was just a close up of a face of an ostrich, and then that same ostrich face looking slightly more concerned with a sweat drop, and it's like this is how a cutscene should be. And everyone scratched their head collectively. Tom put it on the money, and then they just went about their day.
Yeah, yeah. The artwork for the. Oh my god!
Oh no, everyone's dead. Hello? Oh shit. Hello?
Hello, it's okay.
Uh,
Joseph's
I
fire alarm went off.
I
It's not a
lost.
game review if you don't start the fire alarm.
I had lost everyone's audio at the same time that happened, so it sounds really concerned in my take of this. Everybody, loud beeping, everyone's screaming, and then sudden silence.
No, man.
Oh man. No, I guess sorry, the fire alarm went off. I'm fixing it as we speak, so to speak.
No, okay. So we're on the Discord that we use for development, and EntranceJew had pasted in a picture of the concerned ostrich that he wanted us to use in the cutscene, just as like a storyboard. And then when I was making the assets, I took that MS Paint drawing and stuck it on the money.
The dollar bills, yeah. I love that little reference because like, when I was trying to make the cutscenes, I was like, okay, there's definitely some elements that Entrance wants, and I'm gonna try and get them in there. And I did what I could, and you can tell there was obviously like, I tried to get it in there, right? But it was really great to see that MS Paint ostrich on the dollar bills because I was like, this is the inspiration.
Yeah, a little Easter egg in the game there.
Oh my god! I think I still have the MS Paint versions in the game design document. Like, I think I posted it on YouTube with the shittiest audio on earth, but it was just like, yes, this. I remember like I had this strange. There's this when I originally showed it to you. Tom was like, ship it, and I didn't know Tom well enough, so I was sitting here going, is he serious? Like, please no.
Well, after you say that, and after you left, I went to EntranceJew, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think he knows I was joking.
Like, I was like seriously sitting there going,
It's perfect. Ship it. But this is the shittiest thing I've ever done. This is just an example of what it might look like. No, ship it, buddy. It's great.
Like, I've seen game jams with worse cutscenes. That's why I was sitting here going, "Uh-oh, does he mean it?"
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, we aimed for a lot higher quality
We did.
than what is acceptable for a game jam.
I agree. Like, just as they said on the jam, like it was super polished, and I couldn't agree more. It was really solid polish.
Yeah, everything except for the gameplay. The gameplay itself needs more polish, but the game
Yeah.
itself, like overall, the overall polish is pretty good.
Our next point here says EntranceJew can't follow directions, and I'm sure I understood what that meant when I wrote it, but I don't know. That's just like a note for ourselves for the future.
I added the question mark at the end. I have no idea what this means.
Well, I know what that means.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Well, if we get Expose.
You're gonna share? We're gonna have.
Yeah, all right. It doesn't matter whose idea it is. It could even be EntranceJew's idea. He'll be like, "Why don't we do this?" Yes, that is a good idea. A consensus has been reached. And then the work comes back, and you look at it and you say, "Wait a minute. This is not what you said you were going to do."
You gotta think on your feet. You gotta just make some decisions. Gotta make some tough calls. Nobody's around to help you. You gotta just do whatever feels right.
Yeah, no. Well, there was a point where it was just me and Joseph working, and you weren't around. So we were coming up with things, and Joseph was like, "Well, can we do this?" And I'm like, "Well, fuck him. We're gonna do this. This is what we want to do." And
I immediately jumped on that bandwagon. I was like, yeah, fuck EntranceJew.
yeah. And I think in particular it was the very last screen. The ostrich lying dead on the street with
right.
the FBI thing above it. Yeah, we made that without any EntranceJew. But he came back and he liked it and added his own little twist. So
Yep, little sound effect to it. It was like, yeah, that works.
mm-hmm. Firing on all cylinders.
Yep. Yeah, I felt it was good. It was just kind of like, Tom and I were just shooting the shit, and we were just like, hey, let's add this. And it's like, yeah, let's do it. I don't know, it just fucking worked out.
After I added that, I apparently added a bunch of crap. Is our next point. I think we have Twitch chat as the primary one.
Twitch chat
The
was
primary
like a feature that was
thing.
added really early, but like we tested it really late. I think that was the problem.
Well, I mean, Twitch chat was always like, it's not even territory. It's like way in left field in terms of, if we can get this in there, then good. Like, so we had the groundwork for it just to make sure that it was there because we'd already actually developed it. We just had to familiarize ourselves with how we integrated it, where it would fit with this game's architecture. But the AI for the ostrich was always kind of stupid. And we had no intentions of fixing that within the scope of the game jam because we really didn't have the ability to.
I remember asking what the AI was, and it was just like, it randomly moves back and forth and forward sometimes.
Yep, that's it. And when it runs out of Coke, it basically loses unless it gets a boost or one of those refills. Yep. So when it came to Twitch chat, we just kind of threw that in there and said, all right, well, there's going to be a command queue, and the Twitch chat can control the birds. One of the things that I did late into the game is I changed it from Twitch chat being in complete control to Twitch chat having partial control.
So that was really smart.
So that Twitch chat didn't lose immediately, and because during the stream it would have been awful if everyone had if whoever was playing would just like won immediately.
Well, yeah, with a 10 to 20 second delay on video streams, it's utterly. I was sitting here going, "How the hell is this game mechanic going to even work?" I was.
Well, we had it announce in chat when the round was in a certain state, but even then, people only sort of react when they see stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, but people did try and use it, so that was pretty cool. People were like.
Yeah, I couldn't even get the chat's feedback on what was happening because we made the game multiplayer, so I have no concept of what anyone said during that section.
I'm so sad the Twitch stream missed my extra checkboxes in the settings menu.
Well, that worked out perfectly on my part. Is that I knew that I don't think John would try and scroll, so. We just left it the way it was.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. I have to make sure my cat's not skipping.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that the checkbox for the and you can go through the game without seeing the intro cutscene. We wanted to make sure that the checkbox for that was way out of sight so that John didn't try and skip our tutorial.
Yeah, and I mean, he may have, but maybe only by accident.
I mean,
He just started clicking checkboxes.
the only real way you can skip the tutorial is by just not paying attention, which is easier than. I mean, people aren't going to read, but if somebody's literally telling you what to do and you ignore that, then I mean, what else can we do? We even had a diagram.
Yeah, that's true.
What was the diagram?
We had the diagram for the controls, and we're talking about how if you skip text or if you just don't read it, then you know that's a player being a player. But if we scream the controls at you and we have a diagram, and you goof up, then I mean, come on, what else can we do?
Well, a cutscene tells you how to play over and over and over again. You can't get through that cutscene without knowing to push which buttons.
Yeah, like that was one thing I remember. Like for the first draft of the cutscene system, I was like, user testing it on people, and like, I was like doing my best to make sure that players knew the fucking controls, or they were just, something was wrong with their brain. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna say it here, I'm gonna repeat it, I'm gonna visually show it, I'm gonna just drill it into people's heads what the fuck these controls are, because I was like, like I was having a lot of user feedback saying, why am I supposed to push W to go, why am I using W in two places? And it was just kind of like, this needs to be clear as hell if this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think the only feature that people missed completely is the fact that the game had local multiplayer.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think anybody tried it.
If anyone had like gone into the options, they would have been able to tell really quickly. But like, if you aren't exploring the options, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, we didn't really even mark it up as that. Like, it was just sort of there as a bonus. But it's kind of really how you're meant to play it. Is you're meant to have a friend that has a brain smarter than buttons being pressed randomly.
Assuming that like the initial player doesn't just do that.
Yeah.
At one point in testing, I don't know what broke, but the game went faster and faster and faster, and it was going at like light speed, and I was playing it, and I'm like, this is intense, and I really like it. And I feel like if we could have somehow had that in the final game, it would have been a lot better. But
I think some variety of levels in the race might have helped too.
I think that, well, the variety and the holes of the race are perfectly variant in the sense that they are completely random.
Yeah.
So there's no configuration you can't get.
Yeah, I mean, instead of like running through buildings, maybe it'd be nice to run through the Sahara Desert or run through a cave tunnel. I don't know. I was just throwing, like a lot of.
Yeah.
I think it would have been fun to have a few levels.
Well, the game is actually architecturally set up to have, just all kinds of things. Like right now, there's only the 2 different buildings and then a couple of random decorations and the one road type. But if you just put more assets in and tell the game to use them, it'll handle it just fine.
Yeah. Also, the whole round setup was structured for being able to seg straight into another cutscene and then another level. But obviously, when it came to scope and time, we didn't have that. If we had another 2 weeks, if we had done this during the Big Awful Jam, then I think we might have been able to hit the nail on the head. But the thing is that I don't think we would have made this game during the Big Awful Jam.
Yeah, I agree.
It's weird. We made Grandpa a game for some strange reason.
I liked Grandpa game.
Not a lot of people did.
You're probably the only one.
I remember playing Grandpa game going, okay, I can't really tell what the point is here, but I love the feeling of the game. It really felt. I really love the feeling. I don't know how else to explain that. It
Well,
was
yeah.
clean. The style was good, and it was cohesive. The music was great, and there's some sense of progression. But I was led to believe there isn't really a sense of progression, and I really liked that.
Well, we polished the hell out of the one thing we had. So,
Yeah.
just the ambience.
Yeah, we had tons of trivia loaded up for that one. We wanted to be like, yeah, here's our cool game. By the way, do you know that this guy looks at you and like all these other weird things? but nobody could even manage to play the game all the way through.
Well, anyway.
You're supposed to lose. You just run out of time, don't you?
Well, that's how life is. We should have hit the clock. I think that's one thing we should have done in that game, is because people saw a timer counting down and they started running, and everything goes out the window when you see a timer. You start running.
I think that was very symbolic of the game, though. It's like you have 15 minutes to play, and you're not told there isn't an end. I felt like that was really symbolic, and I liked that, actually.
Well,
but then again, like game developers and their artsy video games, what do you want me to say? Like, I liked the Beginner's Guide. That was a fantastic game, Other people would be like, this is a fucking waste of time.
So as I was saying,
Joseph, yeah, he came in halfway through.
I did. I was in Austria for the first. I only ever got to see the brainstorming document. I guess this is mostly me then. Yeah, like I came in halfway through the jam, as mentioned earlier, and I didn't even know there was a game design document until someone was like, "Yeah, we got one." And I remember looking at the early builds and the brainstorming and whatever the hell was available in the repo, and I was going, "What the fuck is going on? Like, I have no idea what the hell is going to happen here." But once I saw the game design document, I was so much more excited. I was like on board, and I was like, I see where this game is going. It obviously has a plan, and I can jump in and start working. I was so happy with that. God. Someone added, I'm massively disappointed in Unity. Who added that?
I don't know. I think that was me.
It wasn't me.
I like Unity, and I have like a love-hate relationship. Like, there are a lot of things that piss me off about Unity. It's a great development platform, and it's really good, especially for small teams and smaller projects. But like, there are so many things. I could go on for hours about all the bullshit that Unity does. But the biggest thing, as I have written down here, is that the community drives me nuts. Like, when you have a problem, you look it up and you visit the forums, or you see the wiki, or you even look at the documentation, and none of it's like versioned. It doesn't tell you what version of Unity it's for. And then sometimes they give it to you in the wrong language. So you're getting it in this bastardized version of JavaScript that doesn't even deserve the name. I call it Unity script just to be technical about it. And then, of course, you also have people who are like, telling you how to do things. They're like, oh, yeah, this is easy to fix. And then either the example makes no sense, like in any fashion after reading it 20 times, or like it's just wrong. Like, there's no one managing this. And there's, the Unity wiki. I mean, it's not even a wiki, though. It's just Unity docs. You can't edit. You can't add examples. You can't talk about the differences in versions. It's just like, I come from open source documentation, like, for example, the Love community, and it was just like the docs are there, the docs make sense, and there's examples that help explain questions. And if you don't get something and the docs don't explain it, you're encouraged to add it to the documentation. But with Unity, it's just like, yeah, here, get this paid module to do what you want to do. And it's just like, no, I don't. Why does this have to be this way? Why can't people just help each other? And it's just, I don't know. Obviously, I come from an open source background, so like a lot of this drives me up the fucking wall to begin with.
I don't know. They might do a little bit of that on purpose to drive people to the asset store, because that's one of their selling points to developers is you can make an asset and put it on a store and make some money.
I don't mind Unity pointing you to the asset stores. The problem is the community is pointing you to the asset store, to assets that are wrong or bad or like priced at a point where you're kind of like, okay, maybe this will work. If I pay $20, it still might work. Who knows? You know?
Yeah, I know.
Like,
I'm
there's
not
no
saying
guarantee.
it's not a good model.
Plus, I mean, as far as I mean, to bring ethics into the equation, it feels so weird, really weird. It's like, oh, I want this for our game jam game, and we're buying in and just buying like this and that, and it's like, how does that help me as a developer grow if I'm buying
Yeah.
my way into having a feature that I think should have came with the damn engine, or
Yeah.
there
Like,
should
that's one
be
big thing.
something
That's one.
available.
I mean, that's the one big thing between, like the Ludum Dare Jam and the Ludum Dare Compo. Like the idea is for the compo part, you have to use open source or freely available assets. You can't pay for assets and include them in the game. And the game's lacking a little bit in quality, but you learn way more. Like
Well,
I yeah.
the big awful jam, you're not supposed to pay for assets, and if you do, you're supposed to say that you did. They
Okay.
loosened up the rules for the little awful jam because they were too restrictive, I guess. But then now there's just no rules for the little one, which not the end of the world. But yeah, I think if you lean heavy on Unity Store assets, you're encouraged to say what was Unity Store assets.
I mean, most
Um,
developers can tell the difference between a homemade asset and a Unity asset. I mean, there's no question in anybody's mind that the ostriches we used were handmade.
oh yeah, and I'm not just saying like the models and stuff, but like the one toon shader that we made very light use of, that was a free asset. But the bend the bend shader, I wrote that one. I mean, I didn't come up with it. I found a tutorial on how, but I wrote it.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean, yeah, obviously, yeah. Like I only know GLSL love shaders, so it's just kind of like seeing shaders are sort of a foreign entity to me at this point in Unity for me.
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
I've written.
shaders are always a foreign language, literally, to anybody that in their natural home, unless you're doing C++ nowadays.
Even C++, I would say, GSL and DirectX shaders are just kind of like HLSL shaders are all like, I have very little idea what I'm doing here. Like the biggest contributions I've made was to the Love Shine library. I was like finding like love shaders and I was converting them to the Shine shader library system and like I got some compliments out of it, but I was kind of like, dude, I just guessed.
Mhm. Yeah, that's how I am with shaders. It's like, alright, I'm just gonna bang at this until it works.
That's game design in a nutshell. I mean, like when you're doing like business applications or software for companies and stuff, you're kind of like, okay, I need to know exactly what I'm doing, and the output needs to be exactly like this, and I understand it entirely. But a lot of times in game dev, it's just kind of like, maybe this is the right loop, and then like once you test it, you're like, no, that wasn't right. Maybe this is the right loop.
See, if you think that I don't go to my job and just start doing whatever until it works, then that's where you're wrong, kid. No. Okay,
well,
so
everything came together though.
and then I think you were encouraged to make decisions without me.
We talked about that a little bit.
Yeah, the name of
Where
the
the
game.
Oh yeah,
I
you
added
said
new
where the hell the
exit
name came
scene
from.
and some things like that. We were just kind of like, entrance isn't here. This is something on the task list. We're competent people. We're going to do it.
Well, I know how to take charge. I'm used to it, but you know, you kind of gotta figure out where in the hierarchy you are. But then we're all on the same level in this game jam.
Yeah. I mean, most of the direction comes from the person who had vision. Usually, unfortunately, I'm used to having the vision for these game jams. I like a lot of times I sit down and I say, okay, here's a bunch of ideas. What do you guys think? Give me ideas. And I would keep the vision in my head and then help people pull it all together. But here we had a lot of the vision coming from Entrance, and it was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna be a follower this time. You know what I mean? So I know I was encouraged to make decisions, but it was kind of like I had to stick to Entrance's vision a lot of the time. And I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying it was different.
Oh yeah, it can be weird dealing with someone else's brain space, because it's like Tom, until, I mean, for the first couple times we worked together, it's like, even for Llama Goes to Market, like, the game came out great, but when he described it to me, I'm just imagining, like, if you can make it happen, then by all means. Really,
I told you to make Pong and you made Breakout.
well, that's what I mean, is that if you can...
Jew can't follow directions.
No, not even a little bit.
but I mean, it usually works out. Or there's enough time at the end to kind of regroup and see where we went wrong.
I don't. EntranceJew's never played a video game before.
What do you mean? I played the one with the what is it? You gotta have the little pegs, and they're in a triangle shape, and you only gotta have one left by jumping over them. They have them at the Cracker Barrel. That's a video game, right?
Duck Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds a little like Minecraft to me. Like, I don't know.
Well, they're similar. They're very similar.
Yeah.
All the games from that time period were.
We're served with breakfast food.
The Duck Hunt Minecraft era.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
Just
You
a
can't
bunch of
follow this
games.
thought?
Just a bunch of games you can get at a Cracker Barrel.
Yeah.
The Cracker Barrel, peg game that was like Minecraft. And,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so next on our agenda we have programming problems, and I guess this is my little soapbox time.
I added a few things, but I'm sure you can easily comment on those.
So the Hippo game was largely considered pointless. Precisely one person liked the Hippo game and thought that the whole game should have been hippos. And
but there was nothing W. Like, you just put W for the hippo. I like the Hippo game. It was really strangely introductory to mash the keys and then do something. I kind of liked it.
There really was a guy who was like, that was the best part of the game.
And I don't know if he meant it like as like fuck you, or if...
No, I think he was sincere. I don't know why, but I think they just liked the springy necks on the ostriches.
I mean, that was my favorite part. That was something we brought over from Mama Game.
I love it when the ostrich necks would sometimes, like, it would reach out for a cocaine package, and then another ostrich would take it, and then the one that was going for it would just go bananas, like off the screen and like S shapes. It's like, what the?
Well, that's how I feel when someone eats my food.
I think the packages that got picked up had mass, and that affected the ostrich's neck.
I liked the one thing about the way that I did it, the way that I programmed it, is that I set event flags. I ended up writing this little tween library based on smoothing curves. I didn't write the smoothing curves part. I was ready to port a bunch of things from other programs to fit the Unity tween functions, so I could apply them to vector 3s.
That easings library?
Yeah, and I had another thing that I wanted to write that I just wanted to be able to say, all right, this component, I need you to be over here. Can you do that for me? And then it just do that. So I just wrote a hook for it. So it's like, whenever you're done with whatever the hell you're doing, I need you to do this. So it really worked with the way the bird kind of lunges out. It opens its mouth. It tries to get a cocaine. If cocaine disappears for any reason, then the bird will just kind of shut its mouth and start going back. Unless you press W again, in which case you can stop retracting and you can lunge out for the next closest Coke bag, and I thought that's really interesting and kind of fun to watch when you're trying to eat the Coke, and like you were saying, somebody else would eat it. But then your bird would just kind of like shut its mouth and be like, "Oh, well then," and then you get to go for another one. It's fun seeing the mouths open and close.
I thought that was actually rather clean. I was really impressed when I finally played the hippo game. I was just kind of like, this may be just bashing W, but like at least the heads and the movement of the ostriches were going to the right place.
I did end up spending a lot of time tweaking the rig for the neck.
Yeah, so that it didn't go wonk.
Well, I mean, you can go and find one of like the first production GIFs of the game before I fixed it, and like everything looks like it's okay, and then a thing hits the ostriches, and the necks bug out and do like the big triangles that go off into infinity thing that 3D games do sometimes. And it's like, yep, thanks, Unity. I guess I'll fix that now.
And then, I mean, as we were making it, I think we already talked on it before, is that we realized there's not much emergent gameplay, or Tom said there's no agency, which is right. There's no real way to like spice it up. There's no real way to put power-ups if you're not controlling like a physical, game piece. That's like half the fun. So when you take that out, we add a lot less than that. So we added the racing game. And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out, like, all right, well, how am I supposed to space out the platforms? How am I going to get the birds to move around? Tom wants trails. He wants the garbage to fly out when we hit things, which means that the whole rig has to move. The birds have to actually be moving in order for the trails to work, in order for the garbage to have direction when they collide. So I built this diorama of everything, and I had to when you first load the scene, the birds are in the Hungry Hippo phase, and then they tween into a world that is procedurally generated at runtime. We generate the world chunk. We generate like enough world chunks to go out into the distance, without you seeing the horizon. We generate the little hazard strips and set the prefabrications based on the time in the race and how difficult it needs to be at that given time. And that's the whole reason that the game wasn't functional for like the first week or so, is that we spent all this time with like a major variable still in the way. Is like, oh, how wide should the race be? How wide should strips be? And then we made it bigger, and then we made it smaller. And we ended up making it 6 instead of 4 as it started, so people could actually move. Because we scrapped the mechanic where people were meant to bump into each other.
Well, originally the hippo game was like 3 minutes long. I was really happy to see later in development it was pulled down to 30 seconds. I felt like, we were all talking about how the hippo game was pointless to a degree, but I'm glad we still kept it in.
Yeah, I put it at like 2 minutes just to bother everybody. But the true duration of it was supposed to be closer to 1 minute. And then even then I'm like, 45 seconds sounds better, and then we ended up with 30 seconds. But
that's because people were playtesting it, and between not knowing what the cocaine did or why you wanted to play the Hungry Hippo portion, I ended up putting it at 30 seconds just because that was like the limit of people's tolerance to play a game that had no point.
Yeah,
which
I
is
like
true.
that.
And also a part of it was to make it so that we were it was replayable. It's a party game. Whether or not it started as one, it ended up as one. It's a party game now, and you're meant to be able to play it over and over again. That's why the intro cutscene doesn't replay, is so you could just kind of get into it and you can just do it again. You win, rematch, time to do it again. And
yeah, it's definitely It's the most fun local multiplayer, sitting right next to somebody, pushing buttons and yelling at each other.
Yeah. The next 3 points I think are mine. When we're talking about programming problems, I remember at the very end, in the final push, like one of we had a few weird bugs and a few weird things that had to happen, and one of them is when the cutscene ended, it would show the Unity's default skybox for like 2 seconds on slower machines and like half a second on faster machines, and then it would switch into the hippo scene. And like I was like, I had written the cutscene library, and I was just like scratching my fucking head. I was like, I have no fucking idea what the hell this is doing. Why this is doing it. Finally, I just deleted the skybox, and I was just like, all right, it's gonna be black now. Other than that, there was also like because I did the menus differently. There was a lot of internal stress talking about like, hey, the music needs to happen and it needs to fade from one to another. And like I remember looking at I was trying to reuse the code from the original menu, and I was looking at it going, how does this crossfade? Like I was trying to figure it out, and it was only for 2 audio sources. We had 3, so I was just kind of like, you know what? Like I need code I can understand. So I just wrote a crossfading library and implemented it. I was just like, this has to happen, and I'm going to do it. Entrance doesn't have enough time. I'm just going to do it. And I think it ended up working out pretty well, because the music literally crossfades as opposed to like turn off the original source, turn on the next source.
Which is important, especially when you're replaying it. You want as few hard seams as possible. You want to... And kind of why I put the pressure on to have that particular thing is like, we want this to be played more than once. We need it to be played more than once. We don't want some things to be like, oh, I've been playing it, but when I play it again, this annoying thing happens, so I don't want to play it anymore.
Well, my big problem is like from what I could tell, and please correct me otherwise, is the original menu scene just changed the music. It didn't really actually crossfade it.
I think it changed its snapshots, and snapshots have volume and sources that can be different on them. So but yeah, it was only designed to do one thing, because it's like the Unity Game Jam menu template from the asset store from Unity itself.
But yeah, I went through and I was using delta times, and I had the crossfade over a second, so one audio source would fade out and the other one would fade in. It was like, I was actually pretty proud of the crossfade library, because I think we can reuse that at some point. The last point I have was prefab origination. Like some of the prefabs had like multiple objects inside of it, and it was the objects that were deeper inside of it that had some of the scripts attached, and that was like one of my biggest frustrations, because I was like, where the fuck are these sound effects coming from that are associated with these prefabs?
Yeah, when our audio solutions are usually really simple. We do something like, all right, this thing's going to make a bunch of random noises, and that's about it. The most complex thing was I had a thing... I didn't want to wire together a bunch of component pairs on the ostrich itself, and I didn't want to have some audio manager somewhere. So I had written something that just generated sound sources and their playlists and their variants onto the bird at runtime. Again, fortunately, we didn't have any race conditions.
Yeah.
And this is why we need an audio guy.
We talked about that a bunch of times. We really need to bring an audio guy onto the team, because for game jams, the free sound stuff is fine. But we really need to
It's not just the audio assets; it's the integration.
Yeah.
It's like it's the presence of mind of somebody. If somebody's thinking about it, then we don't have to be. Like, nobody else has to worry about, should the garbage make noise when it hits the ground? How's it gonna know to make noise? I don't know. If somebody's thinking about that from the beginning, it's gonna...
Yeah, well, if that's their baby, they take care of it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there were other issues I had. Last minute bug fixes from the cutscenes, the Hippo game. We also had some last minute fixes with getting the freaking game to reset properly. I had a big method of all the variables that could have possibly ever changed ever. And this is how it works, by the way, is that we had a god in our main scene, and in the race scene, it doesn't activate until it enters the race scene. So once it enters the race scene, it has to clear a bunch of variables because I didn't write a proper reset method, or I didn't do something right. So I ended up just slapping the default values back on to everything when it enters again, and that seemed to fix the issue. I don't know. Something terrible might happen if you if you play the game too much, other than the crown getting humongous.
Well,
Yeah.
I want to talk about one thing here. Partway through the game, when we were trying to figure out how everything was work, EntranceJew was trying to get me to solve programming problems with the animator, and Joseph was trying to not use the animator to do the cutscene. And at one point, I just made I made a joke. I was like, why are we programming the animations and animating the programming? I was so confused. But the Unity animator is actually pretty powerful because it can touch pretty much any exposed variable and over time apply a curve to it, or different states, like there's state machines and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty good. So I guess technically you could use it. I kind of wonder how far you could go making a game without touching much code and just using the animator. That'd be a goddamn nightmare.
Sounds like the Unreal Engine.
Well, I mean, you
Well,
could
I mean,
use it as your own faux blueprints if you wanted. I'd probably hurt you if you did.
Oh, the blueprints are way more powerful than the Unity animator, but I mean, that's the same idea, I guess.
Yeah, no, I remember you introducing me to the animator, and I was like a little hesitant at first, but I was like, "This is really powerful."
And it's good for state machine-esque logic. I mean, somebody's probably screaming right now, but I mean, when it comes to, oh, I got to debug a state machine, looking at it in the animator is way easier than like, all right, well, what 4 variables are active to enter this branch? I don't freaking know.
One of the things that feels wrong about Unity when you're a programmer is you're programming a game with the mouse instead of typing code.
Yeah.
And I mean, personally, for me, Unity makes just about the right amount of assumptions of what you're going to want in a game. It doesn't step too far, and you can circumvent pretty much anything if you have to. So,
but I mean, yeah, it's all about the scene manager. I remember I was streaming the dev of the game on Twitch, and someone popped in and said, you know, like I haven't really used Unity, but like, doesn't it drive you nuts that like there's like a visual aspect to the programming scene? And I was kind of like, yes and no. There's trades off, right? By being able to have a scene that you can edit and modify visually, it's a lot. Everything's faster. You know what I mean? Whereas if you do everything by code, it's a lot more precise, and that's sort of the big trade off, if you ask me.
yeah.
Yeah, I just, something that always bothers me when I'm programming, and this is just my own little pet gremlin that I hate, is that I always hate storing like a start time and a duration for managing the state of something, or if it's a gun, then you have reload frequency, or you have some other thing. I hate storing timers. Timers are the most irritating thing in the world, and I hate that there's not like that people don't teach a more elegant way of dealing with time, instead of, okay, here's your accumulator, here's your goal, here's how fast it goes. It's like,
I mean, it'd be nice if those variables could be pulled off the asset. And I mean, for example, in the cutscene system, like I was using a lot of internal timers, but the final times and all that stuff, and was, you know, defaulting to the time of the sound object. And I mean, you could I allowed for ways to override that data, but at the end of the day, like, you know, it was like I want the library to focus on using real data instead of requiring user inputted data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So our next point, Tom.
Hmm?
Someone has to explain this.
What? Why didn't we make a porn game?
Yeah, I like.
Well, that's easy to answer for this. You're not allowed to put porn on Twitch.
Oh, that's true.
Like,
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
wouldn't have gotten streamed.
that's evident. And I mean, that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but there was a game last Jam that had boobies in it, and they took it off the list.
I think they bricked it or something.
Yep, they were like, "Nope, can't have this.
I
Doesn't
saw a
count."
titty. I saw a tit.
Well, it was a chess game, I believe, and
More like a chest game.
oh,
Oh, Jesus.
well, they weren't. Well, I mean, I guess they were fairly realistic models, but they didn't have realistic texture. They were like marble or something.
So
Yeah.
it was like a bust of some sort.
I'll say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, moving right along.
Very long. I
Uh,
had this last point. I just want to talk about, you know, retrospective. What could we have done to make the game better?
We
I don't
should have
know.
made a
Is it not
good game.
perfect?
Yeah.
Well, it's always easy. It's always easy to be bitter when there's a jam, right? So there's all these games, and everybody, I mean, presumably everybody works hard, and you don't know how much time someone spent on something. You don't know their skill level, and so it's easy to look at like, oh well, you know, EntranceJew, they make a game every year, and it's always pretty good, so we expect more from them. And this other team, they got like 15 people on their team, so it better be really good. And then there's this other guy we never heard of. He's solo, and we think his game is pretty good for you know what he had access to make the game. I mean, you could look at it that way, or you could say like, well, you know, even though a game might not have flashy graphics, maybe it has a really, really good mechanic, and maybe even the game fails with that mechanic, but it's an interesting seed, and it's something that you would want to see expanded upon, and that's more interesting to talk about and, you know, give advice on than like we made what looks to be a fairly polished game with an infinite runner mechanic that the mechanic itself wasn't polished. Like, it wasn't really that interesting as far as infinite runners go. Like, it could have a lot more juice, and it could be a lot clearer what everything in the scene does and what's happening. And we know that. Like, there's no reason to beat us over the head and be like, oh, well, you know, I really would have liked to see that, what I just said. Like, nobody actually even has to say that. It's like, well, obviously that's what needed to be done with the game, because everything else is fine.
Yeah. It's just but like you said, there's definitely a part to wanting to feel bitter, where you're like, well, we had a big team and we put a ton of effort in it. Why are we getting ousted by someone who maybe done something a little more unconventional and much less polished? I don't know. I think that's definitely a factor that came into this jam was, you know, how big is the team, how experienced is the team, and we're going to put them up against those expectations.
Well, I mean, in previous years, I've seen extremely simple games with almost the bare minimum graphics. And, you know, like maybe it's somebody's first or second game, and they'll talk about it for a long time, and they'll treat it with the same respect as a much more polished product, because you want to encourage people. I mean, I don't think there's any danger that we're going to throw our hands in the air and say, I'm never making a game again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're going to keep making games, and we're going to try and do better next time. So you don't really have to, like, you know, kiss our asses and be like, well, here's a prize because you made a lot of good art.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we won the prize for having the most cocaine in any game.
Oh Jesus!
I think we actually have the least sensible game in terms of like FCC regulations.
Well, I mean, if you look at the moon scene, like if you just let that run, the whole space will just fill up with cocaine until the
Right.
game crashes.
Yeah, our game technically has infinite cocaine. How much do you want?
Well, how big? How much RAM you got?
Yeah.
I think that's the limit, right? Like how big the like how much RAM Unity can allocate for game objects, like how many game objects it can display on the screen at one time. Like that's how much cocaine there can be.
Yeah.
I mean, that is our factor.
Well, yeah, I mean, like let it sit there for a month and fill up, and we'll see what happens. The entire moon. Oh, the moon. That's
The
one
moon.
other thing. Yeah, the moon in our game is the moon. I pulled a topographical map off of NASA of the moon. That's the actual moon there.
Also, the
I
picture
went
of
to
the
the
moon.
moon. I took a photograph of the moon on the moon
That's
for
good.
this jam.
We brought it back, and
Yeah.
now we have topographical data of the moon using Unity terrain, which
Yes.
should be avoided at all costs.
Well, that is true, but there's only so much time in a jam. So, I mean, it's go to the moon and get the data, or use something other than the Unity terrain.
Right. Also, you took a picture of the moon.
Yeah, but that's not my picture in the game anymore because Joseph changed it.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
flipped it upside down.
Well, no, he took it right out. It's like the first thing he does. He comes back and he's all, "Oh, I'm gonna start shitting all over everybody here. Oh, fuck you all. Oh, let's change this one inconsequential thing just to see how many buttons I can push at once." But no, he was just testing his making sure Git was working
Yeah.
and whatnot. Originally, I had taken I do photography on the side, so I'd taken a picture of the moon and stuck it on there. I mean, I didn't take the picture for the jam. I just had one handy.
Yeah. I had no idea.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm like, oh, I don't want to work with Joseph. He's such an asshole. Why would he do this to me?
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, I remember the original scene for the menu. The buildings only have 4 faces, and that fucked up all of the lights originally. I was just like, what? What am I doing? Why are these lights all screwy?
Well, we had to turn the shadows off. The Unity shadows can't. They don't work with the bending shader for the running scene.
Yeah.
Because they're rendered after. So the geometry of the road and the buildings and everything bends, but then the shadows are rendered like up in the air. In fact, the cocaine that floats down from the moon as you're running is using a different shader. So it's actually just traveling in a straight line. It's the world curving away from the cocaine.
That's some relativity for you.
Yeah.
Don't think of it as the spoon bending. There is no spoon.
So we got into talks in here about a dynamic camera. What, do you want to fight about it?
Well, it's the camera's fairly static, and then one of the juicy things that you could do is have the camera like track the mass of the players. So if everybody's up at the front, the camera can kind of slide up, and if people go back, then it can pull out a bit so you can see more. Just to feel a little bit more fluid, because right now everything's all locked down. And I mean, we don't have any camera shake. There's no screen shake. How do you have a jam game without any screen shake? No wonder we didn't win any prizes.
Makes
Oh,
sense
damn
now.
it.
I don't understand how we could have missed that.
Well, we did. We had the HUD elements turned into place, and they jiggled a little, and I thought that was good enough.
Well, yeah, and I mean the necks on the ostriches jiggle pretty good. It's hard to tell which bird is which, especially during the running thing. And originally, we didn't even have the player name on the HUD elements, so nobody knew what bird was what. So I mean, maybe we could put the toon shader outline or something on the birds, but then they would float above the world a little bit as they get farther away, because the world will bend away from them and they won't bend. Or I'll have to figure out how to write a toon shader and integrate that with a bending shader.
Yeah.
Also, we put them on backwards for some reason. I don't know.
You put what on backwards?
Birds, they're usually English language speaking places. Maybe left to right.
Oh yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, not 4, 3, 2, 1.
So whatever poor unfortunate soul looks at the one on the left and says, "Yep, that's me," it's gonna be in for a world of confusion when their bird jets off into the nearest garbage can.
I don't know how that ended up the way it did.
I can tell you how. Is because we position them clockwise on the marble game, on the Hungry Hippo game.
Clockwise from the upper right.
But you still started at 4. You went 4, 1, 2, 3.
No, I went
1,
1,
2, 3, 4. But the only way to make the UI make sense during the race was to invert them. I think there's a commit for it.
The upper left, that's the start.
And the upper left is the fourth player.
I know that. It should be the first player.
But it's like the quadrant system.
I don't care about that. I'm talking about you open up like GoldenEye 64. Which quadrant is which player?
1, 2, yeah. Upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right.
Yeah. EntranceJew.
Okay, well, if anybody has any questions for me, I'll just go back to this point right here. This is EntranceJew can't follow directions.
Oh, EntranceJew can't follow directions. Well, it's, you know what it is? It's little things like that, okay, it's a jam game, so you're not going to stress about it. But those are the points where, like there's a language to video games, and when you go against conventions, that you just make it that one little bit harder for everyone to play your game. And that's really the last thing you want to do, is make your game obtuse rather than difficult through the gameplay mechanics.
And that's one of the last things that we actually fixed that night that we were doing everything, is that we had it so that the result screens were wrong, and they went 1, 2, 3, 4. So we would have had 3 different configurations for the players and the HUD.
Why does that not surprise me? Okay, I got a question for you. So you reorganized that to match the wrong orientation of the race instead of fixing the race.
And this is the conversation Joseph and I had, is that
sleep deprived.
It's 5 o'clock in the morning. Do we make things less wrong, or do we fix the issue?
Well, here's the thing. You guys pulled pretty much an all-nighter, because the last commit was 5 a.m.
Oh, shit,
I got up at 7 a.m., and I came down, and I'm like, oh, shit, they made a commit like 2 hours ago. And I'm checking out everything, and I'm like, oh, EntranceJew's still on the Discord in the voice chat. So I open it up, and I'm like, hey, man, you pulling an all-nighter? And I hear...
Oh, my God. I remember the last 2 commits. What was supposed to be the last commit was EntranceJew saying, make video game very good. And then without thinking about it, I just found something that he had just immediately broken. So I went and fixed it. And I just changed the commit message to stop touching things, EntranceJew. And I didn't even think about the order of commit messages and how funny it actually looks to see the last 2 commits.
Well, commits are messages. They're their own art form.
Yeah.
Almost every time we finish a jam game, somebody makes a spectacle of our public repo. And like, why do you do these things to each other?
Well, you gotta have fun, right? I guess the real game is making the game. Being in the jam.
There we go. Yeah, a swappy swap, and then another commit is get back in there, and then this is how you delete. I don't know how. Hail Satan! You can play the game as many times as you want. Fuck off.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I don't know how many commits mention cocaine, but that's just an artifact of the subject matter.
Here we go. And then I have 2 commits where every time I use the word moon, I added like 8 O's.
So I guess the last thing we gotta fix is the AI for the birds.
Yeah.
If a bird is low on cocaine, it should probably try and get in a lane to pick up the cocaine, or get in a lane where it would hit one of those advancing tiles. And
avoid obstacles.
they should try and avoid the obstacles, but there's a little bit of chaos with just the random button presses, and they're not completely random, because at first they were completely random, and then the ostriches would back themselves off the board and commit suicide, and they would also waste all their cocaine by moving forward when they didn't have to.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of fine tuning, but not a lot, and probably to the detriment of the game, because one of the big complaints was that nobody had a real good grasp of the losing condition, falling off the back of the board. I mean, it's kind of obvious that you want to avoid the obstacles, but everything's so cluttered, and it's probably down to the art, but it's hard to kind of pick out the good from the bad. But I mean, all the good things kind of glow, so...
Mm-hmm.
But then, to not have a good grasp of the game and then also never lose is a real bad feeling. Like if you don't feel like you know how to play the game properly and you're also always winning, there's something wrong with the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the player, the game doesn't become whatever it is we intended. It just becomes outlive the AI, and it's easy for someone that doesn't know what the lose condition is to leave the game still not knowing that, because all the birds really end up losing around the same time frame as whenever they run out of cocaine collectively.
Yeah.
And that's when the first one gets busted, is when it falls off the screen.
Yeah, well, we were trying to, we were tweaking the amounts and how much bonuses the AI was getting, and how fast the ramp-up speed was, because the speed felt good, but the AI couldn't handle it. A human player can, and it gets intense, but the final build doesn't have that, and that's a shame, because when it goes really, really fast, it's actually pretty fun.
Yeah, I was actually thinking for a final release, I mean, beyond the Steam, beyond the Jam game on Steam or something, we have difficulty be something that we can tweak. I mean, 'cause it's trivial to implement at this point. Everything's variable somewhere, so I just have to really just weld them in and have sliders for like difficulty, time, blah, 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 blah.
Yes. Well, I mean, there's a million things you can do. There could be achievements, and there could be a lot more power-ups, and there could be juicier effects from colliding with things. And, a lot of that falls on me, because I really kind of ran out of steam making the assets. Everything that's there is pretty good, but I wasn't feeling like fully creative, and that's probably my biggest regret personally from the game.
Well, to be fair, and kind of what happened, I think this happened a little bit with you during You Will Die Here, is that,
well, that was different, because partway through I realized that the game wasn't fun, and I can remember being like in the voice chat or wherever, just going like, "Oh no, oh the game isn't fun. How can I move on with my life with a game? It's not fun." Oh, and it's like, oh, we just gotta power through it. It'll be fun. Maybe the game isn't supposed to be fun. I'm just like going through like the stages of. But yeah, I know that was different. That I didn't feel good about that game. I mean, it's okay. I'm happy with it now. I'm okay with what we released.
You've made your peace.
Fun. Well, I'm happy with the assets and the way it looked, and there was a couple of technical faults, like the way the camera works.
Oh God, yeah.
Stuff like that. But overall, like it was kind of a seamless experience in the end, so that's fine. But this game, the game probably deserved more effort on the assets. And I mean, I'm not ashamed of what's there. It's still pretty good, but I would have liked to have done better.
Yeah, well, that's a good takeaway. I mean, I love the art, but then again, I'm not like 3D artist, so I have no idea what's really good and what's really bad.
Oh, trust me, I'm not a 3D artist either.
Mm-hmm. If it were up to me, the entire game would just be colored cubes, save the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's not full of programmer art, so there is that. But, I mean, also, there are other games in the jam that clearly have programmer art, or, I don't want to say low effort, but just like quickly drawn things. But that's not the point of the game, because it's more about the gameplay. And if you have an art style that's consistent, even if it's a bunch of crappy MS Paints, it's still good.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency and like an overall direction is what you need for like a cohesive art in a game.
Yeah.
And I also remember EntranceJew said that he wanted to have really good lighting. That was one of the first things he said, and the first thing I did was turn off a lot of the fancy lighting features.
I just wanted the game to not look like Unity lighting, and it goes back to an issue we had with Joseph on the cutscene to the Hungry game, is that we didn't want... I mean, you see the Unity skybox, it's over. You know it's a Unity game.
Yeah.
I mean, we shipped with the launcher shit, and I mean, I don't give a shit about that. But when you see the Unity skybox, anybody who's playing the game who knows how to make a game is going to just come out of it and be like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because like you're ruining the immersiveness of the experience.
I mean, even having the Unity UI is like whatever.
Yeah. If people can see any of the Unity hallmarks, then they're kind of like, oh, it's a Unity game.
Yeah.
And I think, well, overall, see, a game can be made in Unity and it's fine, but if you haven't put in enough effort in your Unity game to not use the default Unity UI look, and like you haven't gone and I mean, like if you have the standard assets that everybody pulls off the asset store and is in half the Unity games out there, yeah, maybe you haven't put enough effort into your game.
Yeah.
I mean, part of it is skinning it, and even if the skins look... I mean, I say this, we haven't skinned the UI this time around. We did for Llama Game, and it looked nice then. But we half of it is skinning it, and even if it's like a MS Painty something, if it fits the theme of your game, that helps a lot. Versus something that's kind of sterile.
I remember looking at the assets going, I think I even brought it up. I'm like, should we reskin these UIs? And we're like, oh, that's a polish if we have time. But, we ran out of time in the end anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to be dicking with your menu when the game still doesn't work.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, to be fair, like, we probably should have spent more time polishing the gameplay, because that's where we fell down. And I think we kind of always we had a kind of a hard time presenting a decent win condition a lot of the time.
Yeah, at the very beginning, we had difficulty taking the part of the game where you did all the cocaine. Why do you have all the cocaine? What are you going to use it on? Oh, well, let's use it to run. And then we run. It's like, okay, so how do you lose running? Because one of the first things we did was take out the destination and then make it a survival kind of multiplayer game. Because running against bots against a fixed destination is kind of like the Hungry game. Is that like you have a time limit, you have a place to be, you have how much time to be there. It kind of closes the gap without all any of the engaging features that you might get with a racing game like Road Rash or something.
Yeah, and I mean, we probably could have put a lot of elements of Road Rash into this, and they would fit right in there.
Yeah.
But hey, it's a jam game, and we worked pretty much as much as we could. We got a game shipped. I think we did a decent job.
Yeah. This is a really frigging awesome experience, I think.
Excitebike was the game where you were like the frog and you got on the speed bike and you had to go through this place that looked like the intestines and you had to avoid hitting the walls, right?
Battletoads?
You think that's Frogger? Like, you've never even been to an arcade, have you?
Are you sure you're not talking about the turbo tunnels?
What? No. That's what Mario goes into, the big pipes.
Oh.
You put your quarter in the machine, right?
Alright.
And then the claw comes down.
Yeah.
You pick up Mario. You try and pick up Mario with the claw and drop it into the pipe.
Wait, this is the crane game.
They also had the pretty decent cheeseburgers there.
Well, I think that about wraps it up, unless you guys got any other thoughts.
Did we have any thoughts?
I don't think.
Generally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, we could probably talk for hours and hours of nonsense, but we covered all the points on our list, so that's probably good to cut it off here because we don't want another hours-long monstrosity. Hours long, yeah. I don't know how long it's been. I don't know what time it is now.
It's been less than an hour.
Really? Because the last one was like 2 hours long.
No, this one's 2 hours long.
Says 1 hour so far, yeah.
Oh,
anyway,
the last one was 3.
Was it?
Yeah.
2.5.
Probably.
That was depression, decreased ability to feel pleasure, suicidal thoughts, ostriches. We'll put the links in the description, and you guys can try it out if you're interested.
Yeah, hit like and subscribe.
Don't subscribe to my YouTube.
Oh God, no! Don't. No.
All right, folks.
Later.
All right, I've stopped the recording. I'm going to upload mine to YouTube. You can use it if you want.
I'm not gonna. I'm still recording. I'm a madman.